We are awaiting President Trump in Kansas City, Missouri, where he will be addressing the veterans of foreign wars there. We've been waiting, and the lights are on now, so we do know that he will be coming up momentarily. There are a number of issues we expected him to address. Veterans issues, of course. Yesterday, his VA Secretary, Robert Wilkie, was confirmed by the Senate. Wilkie is there with him today. And we also expect him to maybe go off script and talk about revoking security clearances for a number of intelligence officials. He just recently tweeted about Russia in the upcoming 2018 midterms. And of course, there is news on North Korea as well. So we are waiting for him, and he should be here momentarily. Now, New York Democratic Senator Kirsten Gillibrand renewing her calls to abolish ICE, telling a crowd at an event called Aussie Fest in New York City that, in fact, it should be her party's first order of business should Democrats win control of Congress. Watch.
When we flip the House and flip the Senate, I think the first thing we should do is deal with the children who are being separated from their families at the border. We should, I think we should get rid of ICE.
This comes as new polls show voters increasingly believe the Democratic Party has gone off course. Here's an NBC Wall Street Journal poll. You'll see on the right side of your screen, 56% see Democratic candidates as out of step with the mainstream. That's a significant increase from 2 years ago when 42% said Democrats were out of touch. On the other hand, a nearly identical number see Republicans as out of step. That number, pretty good accurate depiction of America right now. Yeah. But that number has been consistent over the past 2 years. So, David, there's a lot going on in the world, a lot going on in the country. Is getting rid of ICE the first order of business for Democrats? Should they flip the House? And do we say the Senate, too? It's pretty ambitious there.
Yeah, good luck with both of those, by the way, because if you look at the Midwest and you look at the data and you start to look at the real tracking, not a poll that goes either way, depending on the questions for Democrats or Republicans, Americans don't agree. If you want to get rid of ICE, what do you do next? If you want to get rid of ICE, what do you say to the 500 and something victims of human trafficking last year that were rescued because of ICE? What do you do about border security? What do you do about all the interactions with other agencies on law enforcement? And what do you say to all the people who've committed their lives to protecting this country? Americans look at that. They don't wake up and see the polls. They wake up and go, these people are protecting me.
Marie.
Well, Democrats,
Shaking your head.
I am, because Democrats across the country, particularly in the Midwest, where I was last week talking to a bunch of our candidates running in swing districts, they're not running on abolish ICE. They don't think we should abolish ICE. Kirsten Gillibrand is getting ready for 2020 with those comments, and that's fine. But in terms of the midterms, I will say there are Democrats, like we used to call blue dog Democrats, there are Democrats who fit their districts that are giving Republicans a run for their money in Ohio and Michigan and Pennsylvania. And I keep saying to people, I know the liberal wing of the party gets a lot of national press attention because I agree, it's interesting. But if Republicans don't see this undercurrent of moderate Democrats who are really focused on their districts and aren't talking about abolishing ICE, I guarantee you they're not talking about that. They're going to be surprised in November because something's coming
But
here.
you talk about how in the Midwest these voters are not interested in abolishing ICE and the candidates aren't running on that. But if Kirsten Gillibrand is interested in 2020, doesn't that actually isn't that detrimental to her chances to regain Trump voters who voted for Obama?
So I think the Democratic Party that I love and am a part of has a serious internal conversation we need to have about 2020 and who we nominate and how we can win. And if you look at Bill Clinton or Barack Obama, I mean, these were not, I know some people have issues with some things Barack Obama did, but he wasn't calling for single-payer health care here, right?
I will say, like, so the Democratic Party is going to go through a big internal discussion after the midterms about what we want to do in 2020, and it will be interesting.
Good luck.
Go ahead.
I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it.
Gillibrand is a unique bird because she definitely has a fame addiction. She will increasingly say things to get more attention to that gasp for relevancy in the Democratic Party, how she turned on the Clintons. And I'm not saying her comments about
border security.
Right,
and
she turned on Bill Clinton and said he should resign. Well, she cozied up to them time and time again. But just really quickly, but when they say abolish ICE, that sounds like Democrats aren't for the rule of law, and they're for child trafficking and human trafficking, things that ICE fight. So it's important. Let her keep saying it.
I want to point out to people that are watching, we are just moments away here because you can see they've turned on the lights there. And we're waiting for the president to come out and make his remarks to the Veterans of Foreign Affairs Wars of the United States National Convention. He's going to be taking the stage, and we do actually really, truly expect it to happen any minute. So we're going to bring it to you live when it happens. As to the discussion that we're having now, I want to go back to the poll that we saw at the very beginning. And what I get from that is that regular people think politicians are out of touch with Americans.
Yes,
and that they
do.
hate Washington. I mean, to me, that said everybody hates both parties. And they just hate people in Washington because they know.
But that will help Democrats.
Trump election.
That will help Democrats in the midterm, though, because we're not in power. And so whenever anybody's mad at the establishment, it helps the party out of power.
But
I love seeing these Democrats, though, like Kirsten Gillibrand or Cynthia Nixon, and they go on a favorable program or they're on a stage with a bunch of liberals, and they go, we should all abolish ICE. That's our #1 priority. And everybody on the sofa with them, they go, yeah.
Interesting.
It's like everybody's in agreement
on that. While they're trying to gain back white working class voters, their #1 priority is going to be abolishing ICE instead of bringing back manufacturing and jobs. I mean, for them to say that out of all the things that they need to work on.
But here's the thing: the Democrats are countering something or trying to counter something they can't, which is the way the economy is growing for that average working class person, regardless of ethnicity. There's another point here. Democrats, quote, blue dog Democrats, they may run as moderates during the election, but then they go in and they vote with Pelosi, which is the far left of the party.
They're going to vote her out.
No, they're not. Pelosi.
I will bet you $1,000.
Wait, we have a bet right here.
I'll take that bet, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Pelosi controls the money. Pelosi controls the money in that party too much, and that's why she's kept her power.
Do I get a percentage if I officiate and if I witness the bet? A little something?
Yeah, I'll get 10%.
No, I'm telling you, though, this...
That's redistribution.
You guys saw it there. We're going to hold them to it.
With all due respect, I think that's an outdated view of the Democratic Party, because I talked to these candidates. We've had 24, I think, say they will not support Pelosi that are running. We have just as many in the caucus who
Murphy
say that...
tried it, went nowhere. Others have tried it, went nowhere. The fact is that...
I think I have a little bit better insight into my party and where they're going. And I promise you, I talked to these candidates. Some of them aren't going to vote for her.
I have a question. I want to follow
up on this. And the ones in Congress...
Why do they run as moderates? Then let me ask you a question. Why do Democrats run as so-called moderates, then go into Congress, and their actual voting record is with the left wing, led by Nancy Pelosi, Eric Swalwell, Adam Schiff?
At least we're seeing where Kirsten Gillibrand's going to give you. Right? She believes in wide open borders, no rule of law. Anybody and everybody can come into this country. If you're a criminal, you don't get deported. I love there was the ICE officials were trying to break up this child trafficking ring out in Oakland last year, and there was video of it. People were outside the home protesting, but they were there to break up a child trafficking.
There's one a few weeks ago. It happened with their rapid response team that went out as they were executing a search warrant for human trafficking, and they went out and stood there and started their protest.
But I want to get back to the politics of this, because, you know, Marie, you talk about there needing to be this conversation about how to handle 2020, but as we've seen in 2016, it's not like Bernie Sanders is on the fray of the party. His ideology and the people that he's bringing with him is a main staple now within the party. And so this idea that it's just going to dissipate just seems like it's going to be 50-50 inside the party.
I think that there are two parts of the Democratic Party right now, the more liberal wing and the more moderate wing. And in 2018, we're running candidates from each that match their districts, and that's just a fact. We are going to have what could be a tough fight in 2020. And that'll be something we'll have to fight out inside the party.
And it will give us lots to talk about here on Outnumbered. In the meantime, we are seeing right now, as you can see on your screen there, that is President Donald Trump as he's coming out and talking to the head of the VFW, getting ready to take to the podium. This is the National Convention of the Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States. They are in Kansas City, Missouri right now. The president tweeting on his way there about Russia. We have a feeling that he might potentially go off script here, I would think, in the midst of these remarks. There are a lot of issues that are brewing on the sidelines, whether it's the rhetoric that's heating up with Iran or we're talking about...